Heyo everyone, and welcome back. This is episode 3, and we're going to be looking at Neural and Code, the next two fighters in the roster. So, let's go. Okay, so Neural is kind of a gimmick character, I would have to say. He's got okay ranged capabilities, fairly good melee capabilities. He's kind of an all-rounder, except he's not. So, he has a few extra attacks. He has, starting with his N attacks, his triple jab, which is generally less slow if you're not hitting someone with it, because I don't know if it's for obvious reasons. His down N is a quick spear uppercut, which pushes him back a little on contact. And his air attack is a spin, which can deal quite a bit of combo damage to foes. It's not as useful yet, we'll get into that later. He has just a normal shockwave attack. Sorry for the lag. It is kind of fast, does a bit of stun, but only 0.4 damage, so... But he does have a diagonally downward traveling projectile that deals quite a bit of damage. It's just underrated. People don't usually use it efficiently. So that's one of the things you're gonna have to learn if you want to get good at this character. Finally, his down M on the ground is a multi-hit attack that will eventually do more damage. And there's also the spear dive, down M in the air. It's a pretty powerful attack. It knocks your opponent up to where you were in the air when you started the spear dive, which is a pretty interesting feature. I'm sure it could be used some way, like maybe, I don't know. You guys can find a way. It's not that bad. Let's move on to Code's moveset. Okay, so Code's moveset is largely centered around his gimmick, the charge bar. You can see it right next to his foot. It just turned yellow at the bottom of the screen. So first, I'm actually just going to show off all his other moves with a few down M's in between. So it looks like his charge bar is ready. His down M calls upon all the charge in his charge bar to unleash a powerful charge. When it's full, this happens. When it's empty, this happens. That is his air N. His normal M propels him forward when he hits an enemy a little bit, and is kind of comboable, and his down N drives him forward. His down M at yellow stage is that it deals 2 damage per 2 hits instead of 3 damage per 3 hits and less knockback. And finally, in the normal stage, that's all you're gonna get. Finally, he also has a M attack, which is it's not super short range, but it's not exactly long range either. It's just a projectile. Yeah, I know that rundown of moves was pretty fast, but you can review it if you want. Alright, I'm gonna head over to the neural strategies now. See you there. So, if you saw my last episode, you'll actually know that my summary of Neural previously was not super thorough. He has a second gimmick, or first gimmick really, second wind. Once his HP reaches a certain threshold, his attacks become stronger, he becomes faster, he jumps more. It's pretty good. So, his strategies will be involving that. So, without second wind, you will generally be using your N attacks quite a bit. Not that one as much yet, but you'll probably be doing combos like that, or just combos with the spear jab, because those aren't too bad either. You'll be using this attack because it is really quite good in all those kinds of situations where you need to get your opponent away from you and deal not a bad amount of damage as well. I don't see many situations where you'd use your ranged attack unless you want to punish opponents from a distance, in which case it doesn't do that much damage. You'll be better off learning how to use your air M effectively. It deals 1.5 damage, even if it's not as easy to pull off. Your air down M is not that useful in this stage yet, and we'll get to why in a moment when we cross the second wind threshold. So you can see now that I have 3 health, the little pink symbol is active. I have heightened jump, heightened speed, and both of the M attacks, the air M and the normal M, have been replaced with strike true, a spear projectile attack. It's a fairly decent move, so just be sure to incorporate it into your strategy a little bit. Other than that though, you'll be using your normal strategies of comboing with the N moves. You'll have the new strategy of being able to deal quite a bit of damage in midair with this attack, as you have heightened speed, so you can move faster while using it. Wait for your opponent to jump and then bull rush them with it. I don't know. You can actually combo them fairly effectively with it, if you would like to. There's also down M, which is as useful as ever. It's never not going to be useful. It's also an armor-breaking move. So yeah. Neural's dodge in this stage also becomes less of a I'm just going forward and more of a slide due to his heightened movement speed. So one of the other strategies with this character is the down M. You see, you have a lot more hang time to activate your down M, which gives you better results overall, and you can actually move more effectively during the down M state. So you can either go straight down or move left and right and aim for the character below you. And since you have heightened movement speed, it's much more efficient to do so. Keep in mind that in second wind, your opponent is going to suffer and want to get rid of you faster, so yeah, that's pretty much a given. Those are most, if not all, of Neural's strategies. He is a pretty open-ended character, so if you do come up with more, then, I don't know, you can talk to me about them in the comments. I'm sure we can have an interesting discussion about that. But for now, let's go on to Code's attacks and strategies. Code strategies are a bit more simple. Generally, they consist of using one attack repeatedly, but not too repeatedly as to avoid staling, and then punishing opponents with that once it's charged up. So you can deal a bit of damage with that, you can get close with that. None of his dodges are particularly useful, they're just the normal dodges that you'd expect. His M attack is a bit more versatile, but again, you're not going to be using it often. One of the best strategies to use with Code, I wouldn't call it spam, but it is a little bit spammy and repetitive. It's constantly hitting your opponent with this. You can chain these attacks together pretty well. Just remember to stop using them for a while afterward to avoid staling. Other than that, his other attacks are okay-ishly comboable. You might run into some tough situations, as none of his attacks are particularly long range. But generally, he's not the most combo-focused character. Just deal some damage to your opponent, then get a safe distance away, and of course do that as often as you can without missing. Because if you miss that attack, it's not great. It is also an armor-breaking move at the 3rd stage, so another reason to keep it charged up to its fullest extent before using it. And yeah, Code strategies are a lot more simple. So let's move on to the AI battles. Neural's first AI battle is against Chalky and Ben, which you saw absolutely decimate me in the first episodes starting. That scene, I don't know right to call it that. They are generally a hard fighter, a good fighter to practice on, because they have a lot of strengths that represent most of the other cast. So, armor-breaking moves, fast moves, bait and punish moves. Chucky and Ben is a pretty good character to practice against in all because of the sheer variety of moves that they have. Either way, I'm doing significantly better than on both of my practice runs, though it might not seem like it. I now have second win, and now I can destroy these chickens. The Fuzzy Fox Cat is not a chicken, nor is Ben, so honestly, I do not know where that sentence came from, but they are going to beg for mercy, like chickens. I just went for a rant about chickens while playing Codebreakers. This is the kind of content you're here for, right, guys? On to the next AI battle. For Neural's second AI battle is a character that most people may think his voice lines sound egregious, but as true as that is, we need him to practice Neural. It's actually a fairly tough fight, mostly because of Ice Blast! Okay, I'm doing much better on this fight than I did in the practice. Yeah, James is kind of a zoner. He's got a lot of moves that can cover a lot of ground and control exactly where he needs his opponent to be. Neural is a bit zonery, but not by much. So, fighting James, especially with all of these accursed ice blasts, is harsh. So, yeah, get some practice in on that one too. It's not nearly as hard as the first one, but Neural's all around a pretty good character, so what do you expect? Now for Code's AI's battle, the first one is going to be Code versus Code. This is actually a surprisingly hard battle, because the AI loves using AirN, usually, which deals a lot of damage. You could actually learn quite a bit from the AI in this, which is also what I did, kinda. But it does do quite a couple of things. Also, I accidentally pressed down M, dang it. But yeah, the AI in this battle is not easy for a few reasons. Mostly because it always finds the perfect time to use its down M. But luckily, I'm going to... never mind, it hit me. But yeah, it's not exactly the easiest fight, but I've had some practice with it, so it's not that bad for me. On to the next. Alright, so for our next one, it's Gem. Now, Gem is actually a fairly good fighter against Code. Code is mainly a melee fighter, while Gem can do two things to disrupt our melee fighterness. First of all, dealing ridiculous amounts of knockback and damage, and second of all, grabbing us and throwing us far away from her. Both of these factors make Gem an annoying fight to practice, if not a particularly hard one. It's just really the only thing that's going to give you an advantage in this fight is your down M being fully charged. Then you can easily finish her off. But it's not a bad fight to practice on. Anyway, let's call that a wrap for this episode. We covered another 2 characters, and we did some other stuff like rant about chickens. See you next time!